You see, folks ain't used to this kind of preaching. They used to Joel Osteen smiling all.
Pastor Gino Jennings is a preacher who doesn't shy away from controversy. He has made a name for himself by challenging the modern-day church and calling out popular figures in the Christian community, including big names like Joel Osteen, T.D. Jakes, Fred Price, and Creflo Dollar. His preaching style is unapologetic and direct, and he uses strong language to make his point. While many may find his approach harsh, there is a significant message he is trying to deliver to those who listen, especially to those who consider themselves religious. The issue Jennings addresses is the watering down of the gospel message in modern churches, where pastors often prioritize being liked and staying relevant over preaching the truth. He argues that this has resulted in a weak church with weak leadership. His criticism is not just aimed at the individuals in the pulpit, but at the entire culture of the modern church. According to Jennings, many pastors have strayed from the foundational teachings of the Bible and have instead embraced a gospel that is centered around wealth, entertainment, and personal comfort. One of the key points Jennings makes is that true leadership in the church should not be about pleasing the congregation or avoiding conflict. He starts by referencing Romans 15:1, which says, "We then that are strong ought to bear the infirmities of the weak, and not to please ourselves." This, according to Jennings, means that those who are spiritually strong should support those who are weak, guide them, and sometimes even correct them. Unfortunately, many of today's leaders are spiritually weak themselves, and they fail to guide their followers toward righteousness. Jennings draws a vivid comparison to illustrate his point. He likens weak church leaders to inexperienced parents who lack the skills to properly raise their children. In this scenario, the child runs wild, breaking rules, disrespecting authority, and failing to learn basic principles like cleanliness and respect. At first, this might seem cute or harmless, but over time, it will lead to bigger problems. The child doesn't learn boundaries, and the lack of discipline will have long-term consequences. This is where Jennings contrasts the behavior of a weak parent with the authority of grandparents. When a child goes to grandma and grandpa's house, there is order. The child doesn't have to be told multiple times to wash their hands before eating or to respect the furniture. The mere presence of grandma's look is enough to communicate authority. The child understands the boundaries and the importance of discipline. Jennings argues that the church, like grandma's house, should be a place of order, discipline, and respect. It shouldn't be a place where anything goes. Unfortunately, many modern churches have embraced a more lenient approach, one that focuses on entertainment and avoiding discomfort. As a result, the church has become a space where anything goes, from Christian comedy acts to fashion shows to praise dances. According to Jennings, these practices are a sign of the church's drift from its sacred purpose. The church, he says, is meant to be a house of prayer, not a stage for entertainment. In his fiery sermons, Jennings doesn't hesitate to criticize the modern church's approach to attracting young people. Many churches, he argues, have resorted to gimmicks like raffles, fashion shows, and entertainment in an attempt to fill the pews. The logic behind this is that if the church provides what young people want, they will come, but Jennings sees it as a compromise. He asks, when did the church become a place where people could gamble, sell raffle tickets, or have dances? When did the sacred house of God become a place for worldly distractions? According to him, this is a betrayal of what the church was meant to be. The Bible, Jennings points out, clearly states that God's house is to be a house of prayer for all people. It is not meant to be a place for worldly activities or sinful behavior. He condemns the idea of turning the church into a place for entertainment and self-indulgence, saying that this is not in line with God's word. Instead, the church should be a place where holiness is upheld, where people are challenged to live better lives and grow closer to God. One of the most controversial aspects of modern church culture that Jennings addresses is the prosperity gospel. He speaks out against preachers who claim that God will bless their followers with wealth and success, often in exchange for large donations. He particularly targets preachers like Creflo Dollar, who have been known for their lavish lifestyles and requests for donations to fund expensive personal purchases like private jets. According to Jennings, this is nothing more than a hustle, a scheme to exploit the faithful for personal gain. Jennings challenges the idea that preachers should live in luxury while their congregants struggle to make ends meet. He points out the absurdity of a preacher asking for a jet when many in the congregation can barely afford to pay their bills. He also mocks the idea of people blindly sending money to preachers who make such claims, pointing out that if someone like himself made such a request, they would likely be ridiculed rather than supported. This is a recurring theme in Jennings' sermons, the idea that people are being emotionally manipulated and exploited by false prophets who promise wealth, success, and blessings in exchange for money. He describes how the church has become a racket, a business where the preachers are the ones profiting while the congregation is left to struggle. He is particularly critical of those who fall for these schemes, claiming that they are being duped because they don't know the Bible and are not spiritually equipped to discern truth from deception. Jennings also takes issue with the way some people try to blend Christianity with worldly practices. He refers to people who claim to live in a Christian home but still engage in behaviors like drinking alcohol, smoking, or participating in other sinful activities. For Jennings, this is a contradiction. If you are truly living according to God's Word, then your actions should reflect that. You cannot claim to be a Christian and simultaneously engage in behaviors that are clearly condemned in the Bible. The core message of Pastor Jennings' sermons is a call for a return to holiness. He emphasizes that the church should not conform to the culture or try to please people. Instead, it should be a place of truth, correction, and discipline. True leaders, he says, should be willing to challenge their congregations, even if it means making people uncomfortable. They should not be afraid to speak out against sin or to correct bad behavior. If they do, they will strengthen the spiritual lives of their followers and help them grow in faith. Jennings makes it clear that he is not here to win popularity contests. He is not interested in making people feel good or appeasing their desires. He is focused on preaching the truth of the gospel, no matter how difficult or uncomfortable that might be. He is not afraid to speak out against false teachings, worldly practices, or weak leadership. His message is one of accountability, holiness, and a return to the true purpose of the church. In conclusion, Pastor Gino Jennings' preaching challenges the modern church to examine its practices and motivations. He calls out preachers who prioritize wealth and entertainment over the truth of God's Word. He urges church leaders to return to the Bible, to uphold holiness, and to lead their congregations with strength and conviction. While his approach may be tough for some to handle, Jennings believes it is necessary for the church to reclaim its role as a place of truth, discipline, and spiritual growth. In a world that increasingly embraces compromise and comfort, Jennings is a bold voice calling for a return to the foundations of the Christian faith.